Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary Part 1. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. On this episode, we are going to be focusing on a crazy night in the playoffs, both in the NHL with the Leafs forcing a Game 7 and in the NBA with the Knicks avoiding one, plus some big breaking news from the National Basketball Association. So we will get to all of that throughout this show. Part 2 is going to be a Fights in Football Friday. Just a Fighting Friday this week. You can kind of figure out what we're going to be talking about on that one. So, let's get right into it. A gigantic night in the NHL ends with us getting ready for a Game 7. The Toronto Maple Leafs somehow, someway stay alive and force a Game 7 Saturday night in Boston. This is unbelievable. I did not see this coming at all. If you have been watching my content here for the last little bit, you will definitely back me up on the fact that I didn't see this coming. And even got a comment, someone being like, hey, calm down. Domi's going to lead this team back to a 7th game. And I don't know if that was sarcastic or not. It's not true at all. But he has at least played well, as has this Toronto Maple Leafs team. And I said in one of the episodes, like, look, if they come back and force a Game 7, then I guess, like, bravo to them, but it just doesn't seem realistic the way they have played in the first 5 games of this season. So first of all, credit to the Leafs for coming out and playing actual urgency-filled playoff hockey. Don't know if urgency-filled is a saying, but we're going to keep rolling. So first and foremost, credit to them. With no Austin Matthews, I did not see this coming at all. But what did we say on the episode after Game 5? Game 5? Game 5. The reason you have these 4 guys, this core 4, isn't so you can call them a core 4, isn't so that you can put a bunch of stuff on posters around the city or anything like that. It is specifically so that you, when one of them goes down, you still have 3 dudes who can come in and step up. And I think specifically one of the dudes who comes in and steps up is William Nylander, as he comes up with a couple of big goals in this in this game. He gets the opener, just throwing the puck on net, and then the breakaway goal that absolutely seals this game. He was, I thought, really good. And Tavares was okay. Marner, really, I thought some of the kids stepped up. Robertson gets into such great spots and just can't capitalize. Nyes, I think, was really, really good for these guys. But it is incredible what they have been able to do, because they have completely controlled these these last 2 games. They've allowed 3 shots in the first period of the last 2 games. And while, yes, they have had some trouble breaking through at times, and that was a concern last night, where they are out shooting Boston to high holy hell. And it's like, well, still nothing. You know, like, Boston now all of a sudden only has to play 30 good minutes of hockey and they might win this series. But credit Toronto that they were able to break through, and they just controlled so much of this game. And then when control slipped away from them, it was Wall who came up with big save after big save after big save. He was excellent in Game 6. And again, wasn't tested a ton. The first even strength shot for the Bruins came midway through the second period. But then the third came, and the fourth came, and the fifth came. Boston, while Toronto controlled a lot of these games, Boston did have some moments where there was some pushback and did have some high danger chances in this, and Wall was there to shut the door every single time. And that is not goaltending they had early in the series with Samsonov. It is not goaltending they had earlier in this season with Wall. They have had struggles at that position all season long. And now, when it matters the most, they end up with a couple of the best goaltending games they have had in a very, very long time out in the biggest city in this country. And now they are 1 win away from an unbelievably improbable victory against the Boston Bruins. And while last year, I think for them, it slayed a big dragon, you got to at least get rid of some of the ammo that people have in making fun of this Leafs team. But now you are a win away from really exercising a demon when you have a chance to beat the Boston Bruins. On the Bruins side of this, so first off, I wanted to give all credit to the Leafs for what they have done. This is a Boston choke job, though. This is, if we want to talk about, is it the Leafs winning it or is it the Bruins losing it? It's the Bruins losing it. This does not look like the team that played 2 games ago. This does not look like the team that was in complete control of this series. They look lost, they look flustered, they look sleepy, they look bad. This is the team that I was warning everyone about as the regular season was coming to a close, that they just don't seem to have that switch that can flip for them. They just don't seem to have that it factor this year. They really sleepwalked their way all the way through the back part of the regular season, and now it feels like they've kind of done the same in these last couple of games. It's like, no, Matthews, hell, will be fine. Like, someone will break through, it'll be okay. And Marchand's really the only one who's playing out there. Frederick is given it. Geeky has popped up at times as well, but they need Pasternak to get going, and Montgomery has said as much. They need this to start rolling. And that is something they haven't really been able to do. There is no life in this team right now. It is a very frustrating watch. I can only imagine it from a Bruins fan standpoint, where you have this. You could just put this thing away and have a nice bit of a break going into a series against the Florida Panthers. Instead, now you've had a couple more games of wear and tear on you, and you might now lose in hilarious fashion for the second season in a row. This would be an unmitigated disaster from a Boston Bruins standpoint. There is no question about it. And I said before that there were only a couple players who had stepped up. I do need to include Swayman in that because he was really good. While his team wasn't playing in front of him, he came up with a couple of big plays when his team needed it the absolute most. And it's just... he has to be frustrated. This whole team has to be frustrated. And now I have zero read on how Game 7 is going to go. If you want to tell me Boston wakes up and just puts the boots to Toronto and it's 5-1 after 2, yeah, I'd buy that. If you want to tell me that Toronto just doesn't get, just builds off of this, Matthews comes out, he's refreshed after whatever the heck he is dealing with, and he comes in and lights the lamp for a couple, and Nylander is great, and Marner and Tavares are there, and Toronto ends up winning this series, yeah, I can absolutely see that as well. This is all over the place right now, and I am stunned that it is so unpredictable going into a 7th game tomorrow night at the TD Garden in Boston. That was the only hockey thing that happened in the NHL last night. Tonight, it is the Vancouver Canucks taking on the Nashville Predators and the Vegas Golden Knights against the Dallas Stars. For Vancouver, this is, I don't want to say it's a must-win, but they had a chance to put this series away, and now you are in a spot where it feels like there's a lot of pressure on them. They are going into Nashville, an arena that has not been kind to home or to road teams, or is at least not easy to play in for road teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs traditionally. And now you lose this game, you have to go back for a Game 7, and it's a nervous building, and it's a nervous team. And now you are seeing what a lot of people were concerned about with this Vancouver team, where, yeah, they had some success in the bubble 4 years ago, but now you're playing in front of fans, and now there's a few more expectations, and it doesn't seem like they are handling it all that well. Tonight, Vancouver needs Elias Pettersson to show up in a big-time way. And he hasn't really in this series. He has had a couple of moments, but that is a need for him. They've had some guys rolling. Besser with the hat-trick game. Joshua and Garland have been their same energetic selves the whole time, and I've liked Quinn Hughes' game. But given the lack of a Thatcher Demko between the pipes, I do feel like this team has gone very conservative, but they need their top offensive player to look like it in this game, or else the Nashville Predators have a chance to pick up a win in Game 6 and have all of the momentum going back into Vancouver for Game 7. And no U2 song or nothing is going to save you if that ends up being the case. For Dallas and Vegas, the Dallas Stars are on some kind of roll. And we've talked before, the last couple of shows, about how I think we all need to cool it on all the talk about Vegas's cheating their way into all of these great players. Well, now those great players, now is the time for them to show up. Now Stone needs to remind people why it's so unfair that he gets to check back into the lineup. They need these best players to be their best players. This Dallas Stars team is rolling. I honestly think Dallas gets it done tonight in Vegas, and I don't think that means panic time in Vegas or anything like that, but it sets up an interesting offseason for the Golden Knights. It was a wild night in the NHL, but also a wild night in the NBA. Let's look at a crazy game between the 76ers and the Knicks, plus some breaking news in the NBA. The New York Knicks are off to the second round after a thrilling win over the Philadelphia 76ers in Game 6 of their Eastern Conference quarterfinal. What an unbelievable game last night. The Knicks look unbeatable, then they look like they can't do anything, and then they look unbeatable again, and then they have to hold on for dear life to pick up a win against the 76ers. Just a wild game that no one really saw coming. No one could predict what was going to happen next. I couldn't. I watched this whole thing. I was watching it an hour after everyone else. I watched the whole Leaf game first, kept this game on pause so I could just skip ahead on the DVR stuff on the TSN website. And just, I wanted to be tweeting like, oh my God, this is insane. All of it, like that 22-point lead that the Knicks get in the first quarter. And then Philadelphia battles it back to the point where they're leading at halftime. Incredible. And then the Knicks still don't look great in the third quarter, but then somewhere late in the third, early in the fourth, the offense starts to get clicking again. But then it becomes a bit of a slog one more time late in this game, and the 76ers made a run. This was great. And this was where you need star players to step up, and Brunson didn't step up for the whole game. He was unstoppable to start, and he was unstoppable to close, and that is when the Knicks needed him the most. He was so good in this game. Overall, he was so good in this game. There were stretches where he was just taken out of it. But he was so good. And then in the back part of the game, as the 76ers are starting to double him, he is recognizing it and taking advantage of it. And I thought that the 76ers did a really good job of kind of countering that when they put Embiid on Hart, so that Embiid is now defending in that pick and roll and just sagging back. So Hart rolls off. He gets the ball and he's driving in, but now he's driving in on Embiid and is like, oh my God, what do I do? And it caused, I think it led to a turnover. So it was really good defense there, but it was a good counter. But still, Brunson, as the double team's coming, he knows exactly what to do, and he is getting his other teammates involved, and they were the ones who were stepping up with some big shots. But it was Brunson who was coming up with big shot after big shot when they needed it and hitting some big free throws left. This is not the Brunson game that happened earlier in the series, but this is what star players do. They step up in the big moments, but also they help elevate the players around him, and I think he did that in a big time way. The other players that stepped up, Josh Hart, I thought, was incredible for most of this game. As most Knicks last night, there was a dry spell in the middle part of this game where just nothing was falling. But Hart's defense, his energy on offense, really provided the Knicks with what they needed. And that is the type of role player that you win with. That is what I kept thinking. Even something as smart as they're passing the ball around with 24 seconds left, trying to avoid the foul. And I think it was DiVincenzo's pass gets a little too close to that end line, and Hart is able to save it and stay in bounds and keep play going so that they do eventually draw the foul. But just plays like that, he does so many little things so well, and defensively, I thought he was great in this game. And then OG Anunoby was so smart in his help defense. Like there were times they were doubling Embiid, but not until Embiid kind of committed to his shot. And there was a couple of times where OG ends up getting a block. Like he has it one-on-one, and he's very obviously about to spin around and shoot, and OG just kind of cheats that side enough that you can't really see him, and then he explodes over and gets the block. He comes up with the monster dunk of the series on Embiid that felt like it was like Vince Carter gif over. And then the Knicks go on an 8-0 run to tie it. But OG was special in this ball game, offensively and defensively. This is why the Knicks went out and traded for him, and this is why the Raptors were looking for 3 firsts from this cat a year ago, because he can be that good. And I thought, was a difference maker in this game with what he was able to do on both ends of the floor. But the real MVP, I thought, for the Knicks was actually Dante DiVincenzo. Because this Knicks team, with no Randall, they needed someone to step up offensively. They needed a Robin to the Batman of Brunson. And at times it's been OG, at times it's been Hart. And in Game 6, for the first part of the game anyway, it was Dante DiVincenzo, who was unconscious from outside and attacking the rim really well. And then defensively, he is a huge part of why Maxey didn't have a very good game either. His quick hands created a couple of steals, and then I thought he had the play of the game, because it is so obvious what the 76ers wanted to do late in that game as they're trying to get the buckets back. down by a couple with no timeouts left. They need Maxey to just build up that speed, sprint down the court, and either get to the rim really quick or set up a drive and kick situation. And DiVincenzo got in front of him and did not let him get that speed up. Twice he did that in the last 10 seconds, and that sealed the game. And that is so hard to do with someone who is explosive and talented as Maxey is, and DiVincenzo able to do that. It was an art form last night. So I thought he was the MVP for the Knicks. It isn't a whole lot actionable now with the bigs because the Indiana Pacers are a bit of a different animal when it comes to the bigs. They don't have a big like Joel Embiid, and I think Turner actually Turner and Siakam create some interesting matchup mismatches for people. But they did what they could against Embiid. I actually thought Robinson did a better job on Joel Embiid, but I also feel like, and it's weird to say, Hartenstein was really important to the offense. When this team had some struggles getting things going on offense, it was that little bunny hook in the lane that Hartenstein was hitting. That was the only easy shots they were getting for about a 45-minute stretch in this game. 45 games are only 48. For about like a 25-minute stretch of basketball in this game. The only easy shots they were getting was Hartenstein's little hook in the lane. And so both guys really played their role. They hacked the shit out of Embiid, but both guys played their role in this game. And it'll be interesting to see how they factor in next series against the Indiana Pacers. But the thing that is really going to need to step up as they get ready for the Pacers now is offensively, because this Pacers team can score, man. Like you saw it last night with McConnell outdueling Damian Lillard, and Siakam has kind of not 2019 NBA Finals Siakam, but Siakam has found a real interesting life to his game now. And so I think there's a challenge here for the Knicks. Defensively, they could absolutely just shut the Pacers down and bully ball their way to the Eastern Conference Finals. But there are going to be nights where that's not going to happen, and you're going to have to score with this Pacers team. Now, the Pacers don't provide a whole lot of resistance on that, but there are going to be nights where you're going to have to do that. And we saw in this series, if this gets into a shootout, the Knicks are a little unarmed with no Julius Randle. Hart can step up. OG can step up. DiVincenzo can step up. We've seen that at times throughout this series. The bench needs to get more than like 6, and some of these guys need to be able to do it consistently, and they're going to need to find ways to get easy buckets at times, because when it bogged down, they just did such a bad job of creating easy looks. And part of that is a credit to the Philadelphia 76ers. On the Philly side, this is obviously a very disappointing loss for them. It's funny, Nick Nurse, no longer the coach of my favorite team, and all of a sudden, all his whining to the referees kind of seems insufferable. But it is what it is, right? But Joel Embiid did everything he could here. Like, he is obviously limited. He obviously didn't have a ton left in the gas tank. Like, he wasn't going out and doing sprints up the rocky stairs after this one. My guy gave everything he had out on that floor, and he was, I thought, quite good. Offensively, it was just he would hit shot after shot, and it's like, how is he still doing this? And the double would come, and he would pass out of it, and they would just go with one-on-one with Hartenstein, and he'd back him down and lay it in. He was hitting jump shots. He was hitting from 3. There were a couple of times where his shots got blocked, and it was just obvious that he didn't really have that lift that he needed. But now, hopefully, a full healthy offseason for him will be like, there was talk that he would join the Olympic team. I don't think he should do that even a little bit. Like that, Paris seems sweet, but if I'm him and I'm the 76ers, I'm like, hey, no, absolutely not. You stay in a bubble until October now, sir, and we'll do that. Like, cardio-wise, just ride the bike, man. We don't even want you sprinting. They need this guy healthy, because this is obviously an entirely different series if he is healthy. And this is still a championship contender if he is healthy. They have a lot of questions this offseason, but they also have a max spot. And, I mean, is it likely that either Paul George or LeBron James leaves either LA team? I still think no. But if they do, Philadelphia is quite the interesting landing spot. So they feel so close to being a championship contender, especially in the East this year. But they need that guy to be that guy one more time. And the other part of it, his presence defensively is a game changer. I said that before when they put Embiid on Hart, so that Hart was involved in so that Embiid was involved in the pick and roll, and he just dropped back, and Hart's like, well, I don't know what to do. There were so many times the Knicks would drive, and all right, we're getting to the rim, and fuck, that guy's there. And he would alter a shot. He would block it. There were so many times his presence in the lane altered a shot or altered the offense in general. And that was when Philly really started to get things rolling, was when in the half court, their defense just shut down the Knicks. And then offensively, they were getting some efficient looks. They were getting some shots. And that was allowing them to set up their half court defense and not letting the Knicks run out on them and get these big looks. So Joel Embiid was an absolute 100% factor defensively in this series. And when this team needed players to step up, it was some of the role players for the 76ers. Cam Payne gave this team the energy that they desperately needed when they were getting run out of the building to start the game, down 33-11. Payne comes up with a bucket, a steal, and a three, and all of a sudden there's some life in this 76ers team. And then Buddy Hield, I am not overstating this, might have saved his NBA career with that run he went on in Game 6, where he started 4 for 6 from 3. I think he got to 20 points with like 18 of them coming from 3. He was remarkable in this game. And like they lose by 2. They needed every inch of what he was able to provide. And that was exactly what they thought they were going to get from him as the season went on. And they just didn't get it until this very game. And just quick aside, watching it from a Raptors standpoint, that I think is the type of player that the Raptors now need to target in free agency, where like he has some rehab to do to the image. And so if I'm Toronto, I'm like, hey, do you want to come just put up a shit ton of points for like 4 months and then we'll flip you for something at the deadline? Like, do you want to just come in here on a 1 or 2 year deal and we'll flip you for something? I think that would be an interesting fit, but we can discuss that another time. This was the unfortunate side of a breakout for Tyrese Maxey, because the Knicks clearly decided they weren't going to let that cat do that again. And as soon as he would get even half a step on his guy, the entire team, it was just like a magnet, just vroom, right down into right down into the paint. And Maxey just had nowhere where he could go. And so much of their offense was predicated off of what he was able to do by getting into the paint. And they shut that down. And so now this is where he needs to have that adjustment, and he needs to have that understanding. I also thought Nurse could have done a better job, Embiid as well, of getting Maxey really involved in this game. And I thought they needed that a little bit more. Like I thought back to Denver's win against the Lakers, where early on, Jokic is getting MPJ involved. Jokic is getting Jamal Murray involved. I thought the 76ers kind of needed to do that with Maxey, where just like, okay, it's struggling a little bit. Let's just run a couple screen. Maxey hit like a 10-footer, and let's get that ball rolling for him, because it never did. And that I think really cost this team. And then another one that I think really cost them, Tobias Harris, in what is likely his final game as a Philadelphia 76er, was a no-show and was absolutely dreadful in this game. Unnoticeable at best. And at worst, a real liability to a team that needed him to come up with a strong performance at the biggest time of their season. Like they needed anything. They lost by 2. If he scores 4 points, they win. Obviously, that's a little reductive, but you know what I mean. They needed anything from this guy, and I think he cost himself tens of millions of dollars in free agency, not just this season, but just in the last 6 games. He was dreadful when the 76ers needed him the most. There is some breaking news in the NBA, as Darvin Ham has been let go by the Los Angeles Lakers. Adrian Wojnarowski tweeting that one out a little bit ago. I am generally not a big blame the coach guy, and I don't know if Red Auerbach came back and was coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, that they get past the Denver Nuggets. But I do think when you look at this roster and you have a healthy LeBron season, a healthy AD season, the best possible case scenario for D'Angelo Russell, Reeves plays pretty well as well. And the best you can do is fighting to get into the playoff and eventually getting that 7th seed. It's not good enough. And this is, make no mistake about it, this is a remarkably flawed roster. And they, I think, almost permanently, at least for the LeBron era, permanently impacted this team in a negative way with that Russell Westbrook trade. And they have done a good job recovering from it, but not a good enough job that they could be a real threat in the West. They've done okay recovering from it, but that was a move that set this franchise back in a way that it is almost too difficult to course correct out of, even with LeBron being amazing still in year 21, even with AD having a relatively healthy, borderline all NBA type of a season one more time. And so, like, you look at it now, like, yes, the roster needs to be better. The coaching probably could have been better as well. Like, this team has been dreadful on offense for 2 years. And it's kind of just been, like, they've tried to put some pieces in here and there, but it's just been a lot of, all right, we'll see if this works. We'll see. Well, it's not working. Let's keep trying. Let's keep trying. Let's keep trying. There was no way to really, it didn't really feel like Darvin Ham was maximizing what this team could do. And now this is a gigantic coaching hire for the Lakers, who really need to get this one right, and really need, like, there are very few coaches who can be difference makers in the NBA. They need to find one of them, because they need a coach who can get the most out of this if LeBron is going to come back and really make a charge over the next couple of seasons. Because you have a couple of the superstars in place, and I think this is going to be a team that aggressively tries to fix this roster come this offseason, but they are going to need a guy who can help elevate this team and not just be, throw LeBron out there and see what happens. Like, there needs to be a really strong coach come into this locker room and get that ball rolling. All right, that is going to do it for part 1 of Couch Potato Diary. Coming up in part 2, we're going to look at the world of boxing, a Canelo preview, a UFC 301 preview, and a WWE Backlash preview. It's going to be a massive show. Hope you guys tune in. That'll be wherever you're consuming this. If you're listening, subscribe, leave a review. If you're watching, subscribe, like, leave a comment. You can follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, twitch.tv/primetimepk, and you can email this show, couchpotatodiary@yahoo.com. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will talk to all of you later. I'm out.